All right, so I think, man, what's up? We fixed that again. So once again, we're gonna try this round two. I don't think anyone really realizes that, but they're gonna lose my joke now because it's a second round. Um, yeah. Welcome to Coffee Table Edition of Conflict of Leadership. I'm your host. I'm Tim. It's Jeremiah over here.
Howdy.
Um, two firefighters just talking about things that affect us in the fire service and affect us just in daily life. So, how long have you been doing this, Jeremiah?
It'll be 14 years in November.
14 years?
Yep.
That's right. You did take a little hiatus whenever I started, so
Yeah,
that's kind of where I lost you. Yeah, about 10 years would be actually 10 years this May. So go me. How much time do you have as an EMT?
12 years.
12 years.
Yep.
So did you get your fire card first, or did you get your?
Yeah, I got my fire card. I went through a program in high school that, junior, senior year is a vocational program. Junior year is all law enforcement. Senior is all fire and EMS. You can walk out with your fire one and your first responder. And I just straight went into this fire academy for it.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that was a little bit of a late starter. I didn't actually go to the fire academy until I was 22, and then I went straight through EMT and then the fire academy. And I mean, I'm glad I waited a little bit, but it's also to a certain extent it feels like it put me behind just a little bit. So what's funny about this is that this actually is a perfect segue and perfect way to start this, because we talked a lot about different topics to bring up. I think the one that we landed on that would be a great opener is being senior in the fire service.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of reached that point now where we are the senior guys, which is absolutely terrifying to think about.
It really is.
What so when you started, what was did you ever think that you were going to come to this point, or did you think it'd be a gradual input, or this?
It sort of flew by. I remember being 19 years old, getting hired here, moving out to here, then being taught everything, what to do, how to do it. And then never did I think, oh, I'm going to be that person. And in the blink of an eye, like that, I'm that person.
Yeah, it's crazy because after COVID happened, after a lot of people took the retirements early, when you think about it, we should be almost mid-range of fire service. We shouldn't be the most senior on the shift, but we also shouldn't be the youngest either. And yet somehow we have ended up in this no man's land gap where there's very few 20, 25-year guys, and there's a lot more of the 10 to 15-year range. So it's kind of a weird area.
It is.
You know, I when I first got in fire service, I thought to myself, like, I cannot wait till I'm at that point where I can either tell everyone else how to do a job, or I've got all the experience. Everyone comes to me with the questions, and how they come to me with the questions.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like it. So what was, what was some of the things that you thought about, like, when you would be a senior guy? Like, what was the dream, I guess, or what was the thought?
Never had that thought. When I was younger, I never envisioned I'm going to be that senior guy one day.
Mm-hmm.
I was that young guy, I was the gung ho. That never came to mind until probably the last 5 years. Like, I'm going to be that guy. And I am that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, people are coming to me for the questions, and I'm like, I don't like it either, but we've fallen into that placement.
I think it's one thing I've realized is that nothing would prepare you for it. There's no like magic point you reach when you say that, oh yeah, I will be ready here, or after X number of years,
Yeah.
I'm ready for that responsibility. It just kind of lands on you, and
it really does. And like, especially for me, I feel like I have also taken on some of a leadership role since I've been at the station.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought I was going to be that person, because I feel like sometimes I'm not a very good teacher. I hate teaching, but I do. And then it's like, oh, I enjoy that, you know?
You know, the
Because
one,
like there's no way out of it anymore.
one of the one things I was so eager to do. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it was the only because you were important in that time. Writing reports. Once upon a time, it would not have bothered me at all to write all the reports. And funny, funny aside, when I was still working as a part timer, I told the full timer I was with at my department that, hey, I'll write all the calls today, and he didn't hesitate at all at that.
Yep.
And but it's funny because now you look back and you realize that it's not necessarily a privilege to write those reports. It's not necessarily a privilege to be the one who's the OIC, but it's absolutely
Hmm.
responsibility. And
Yep.
when you're doing those reports, it's not just I'm writing down all the cool stuff we did. It's the things that happened, whether good, bad, or indifferent.
Oh, absolutely. I won't. I still remember to this day vividly when I found out I passed my EMT national registry. It was a Saturday morning. It was the springtime too. That's how vividly I remember this. Seeing the big packet in the mail, and I was on call that night,
Mm-hmm.
and officer said, "You're writing all the calls tonight." Okay, works for me. You know.
I
And
was
then over the years and years and years of doing it, it's like, all right, I can show someone else this is how you do this. You know.
I remember whenever I started, like wanting to get the approval, the accolades of whoever the lieutenant or the captain was
Yep.
on, because they're as far as I was concerned, they were God in
Yes.
the eyes of the child.
Hmm.
But also too, they were the ones who said yes or no, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And just to think that that was, at one point in time, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed looking up at them, and now
Hmm.
it's, because I probably shouldn't say it like this, but I kind of sat on my registry before I took it as an EMT. I finished EMT school in December. I didn't take registry until the following March because I didn't want to. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, man, what am I gonna do after I'm done with this? What's gonna happen? And
Yeah.
so,
That's how mine was. I finished in
mhm,
December. I took my registry. Failed it the first time, not by a whole lot, just by a
mhm.
couple points. Then I finally passed it again because I had to wait. It was like 60 or some days to take it again, and it was March. Passed it. You know.
So you bring up kind of an interesting thing because one thing that senior the senior members of the fire service have is they have experience, whether it's through mistakes they've done or they've through good things they've done
Hmm.
or tomfoolery, what have you. How do you think that actually helped you now or is helping you, like not passing your registry first time around as an EMT and now looking at somebody else, maybe a young EMT who or young students trying to pass their EMT, or someone who is going for paramedic or fire instructor, inspector, or something like that.
Time management. That's what I've learned. Time management is huge, and I mean, for me, EMT school was a breeze. So was fire school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but about time management. You don't use your time wisely, you're gonna fall behind. You're not gonna know what's going on.
That is, yeah, especially on the paramedic side. It's
Absolutely.
I remember whenever I was in EMT school and all the guys above us told us like, oh hey, you're gonna have to buckle down and do all your clinical hours and whatnot. And kind of, I don't won't say I disregarded all the senior advice, but I definitely didn't heed as much as when I went to paramedic school. And now, as being someone who's been around myself, I would agree absolutely. That's the very first thing I tell anyone when they go to EMT or paramedic school is like, learn how to manage your time.
Hmm.
Learn how to balance things. And
Yep.
I think something else I've learned as senior is how to actually like take the foot off the gas with a job. You know, it's no longer it's not so much that I don't get excited about going to job town, but it's that it's not the goal for me
Right.
anymore. I don't feel like I have to prove anything. I don't feel like I have to get X number of fires or accidents or whatever to validate my existence. And that's something that's only come with experience.
Oh, absolutely.
something that I love. I do love the passion when young guys come through a service and they're like, "Oh boy, I'm gonna stay up all night because I want my first fire, or I want my first code, or I want my first major accident." It's like I love that, but at the same time too, I just want to tell them it's like it'll come,
Yeah.
like it will come, and that's one of the things I want to try to pass on now.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I was that person at one point.
Hmm.
I absolutely was. I'll never deny that because I used to carry my pager with me everywhere.
Hmm.
And probably after about 2 years,
It was cool when it went off because everyone was like,
yeah,
"Oh boy, what's that? What are you going on?" It didn't matter if it was a brush fire, if a barn fire,
yep,
or some if grandma fell down the stairs. It was cool for all your friends to see you run off,
yeah,
and that's especially as I've aged, that maturity of saying that I don't need everyone to see that part of my life anymore. That's
yeah,
definitely taken me down a different route too.
yeah. You know, even just being at the station comes in for full arrest or structure fire through entrapment. I used to run
Hmm.
to get my gear. Now
Hmm.
it's just slowly get up, but put some little pep in my step. But I don't run like I used to.
Plus, it's not you're not losing your mind. You're not out there hooping, and hollering like, "Oh boy, yeah, yeah, fire, yeah." It's like it's that's I think that was one of the hardest lessons for me to learn, and it's something that my chief of my part-time department had to drill into me, and my battalion captain, my full-time department had to
Mm,
drill in, is that slow is smooth, smooth is fast,
absolutely.
and you have to keep your head.
Yep.
You can't be going on because if you get up and you run out the door like that, that's how you gotta go through the time to get to the call. That's how you gotta be on scene.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop. You can't just turn it off.
Yeah. You get the blinders set in at that point in
Mhm.
time. You're seeing one small portion of the picture instead of the whole picture, and that's that. Like I remember when I first started, it's pretty much you get thrown into the deep end,
Mhm.
and it's either you sink or you swim.
Mhm.
You know, like my first structure fire, it's see ya. This is what we've taught. This is what you know.
Mhm.
You're sinking or you're swimming. There wasn't a whole lot of guidance to it. You should do it like this or do it like that. It's just kind of off on your own.
It's funny you bring that up, sink or swim, because I almost feel like that's how it was when we first started, and then now that we've reached a point where we have some experience, it is almost sink or swim again in a way because
Hmm.
there's no one. How do I say this? Not that there's no one there to lead us on further, but that pool has gotten so much smaller
Oh,
as
it's
we've reached this midpoint in our career and we've become more senior to younger firefighters. And it is again, it is almost like you have to sink or swim. It's like, oh, you have to figure it out now.
yeah,
I can't hold your hand. The
yeah,
captain lieutenant says, hey, I can't tell you how to do every single step of the job. You have
exactly.
to be able to do some of it yourself.
Yeah, it's like you almost have to fend for yourself, but you're also going to be have the guidance as well. But like you said, you can't hold your hand to do everything. So it it's either you take the initiative to learn how to do it, or you're going to be lost. And when it comes time to do it, and they expect you to do it, you don't know what to do.
Yeah. But I think that's honestly brings up one of the major pitfalls of of being around for a while is that you are to a certain extent expected to learn things on your own leading up to that point. And there 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 comes a point in which you end up in one of two camps. Either A, you end up in the camp where, okay, I didn't learn everything, but I learned enough that I can figure it out.
Yeah.
Or you end up in camp B, which is I kind of screwed around my first 8, 10 years, 12 years, and now I don't know what to do. I didn't pay attention enough to figure out what
Yep.
to do, and now it's going to become blatantly obvious.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad that I was that person that sat down,
Mhm.
kept my mouth shut, and I paid attention and I learned. Because if I wouldn't have, there have been times I've been screwed because I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah, no, it's there. if you've been around long enough, or if you actually do pay attention, and this is one of the biggest bits of advice I will give someone younger, is that you will have that, if not necessarily an oh shit call, you'll have that call where you look back and say, I could have done something much better, or something I could have done would have improved the outcome.
Yeah.
And if you're if you're in the latter camp where you're just you're not paying attention, you're screwing around, and it's fun time, which the job's fun, it's awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
But you miss that, you can't go back and collect that later, because there comes a point where you're playing for keeps now. You're you're not able to make little mistakes and okay, we can talk you through it. No, you're the one who is responsible for it, and the one who's responsible for the outcome of it.
Yeah. Like the younger guys that are coming on, they're to me, it's like it's a newborn baby. A lot of their training's still fresh in their mind. You got to mold them.
Yes.
You
Yes.
can't. And the guys that don't want to help with stuff with the new people, it sucks because like you're that senior guy too. Like just take help them. They're brand new. Just teach them the way.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, like I said, you got to mold them into that person.
Yeah. Well, and what you begin to realize too, and I feel like we've both seen a little bit of either side of this, is that there's two sides of that coin. One side is that the new guy or whoever they are, they need to be out there, turning the truck out, going through the squad, what have you, opening, closing cabinets. The other side of that coin, though, is what you just brought up, is that the senior members are responsible to say, hey, come with me. I want to show you something.
Yeah.
It's all well and good for someone to have tons of ambition and be out there a go-getter. But if they don't have that guidance in that tutelage, they're just out there opening and closing cabinets 15 times. And not,
that doesn't really teach you anything.
No.
They'll teach you where, equipment's at, but that's it. You're memorizing where it's at that point.
One of my,
really doing nothing.
One of my, it's not a shining moment by any means, but it was a teaching moment in a couple ways. Was we had a younger member. He thought he was pretty hot stuff. He worked a couple volunteer departments and came on to a part-time, full-time department, and thought that they did not need to go through truck checks, just like every other new person, because, well, I've been doing this for a year. I know what I'm doing. The senior guy should take them and challenge them with that. But also, too, it's their responsibility to make sure that they understand whenever they say, okay, so you do know a truck. And some people, they pick it up real easily. Actually quiz them on, well, what do you use that piece of equipment for? Don't just tell them, hey, go find me the Pelican light. Go and ask them, hey, what am I going to use this for? Or what are some outside the box purposes for this?
Oh, absolutely. And that's where I've been guilty of it too. So I'm not going to deny that. And you made a good point. Instead of just saying, "Oh, go find me this," or "Go find me that," what can we use this for? Give me 3 different applications that we can use this for.
One of the things that drives me nuts at my station, this is something I had to learn on my own, is that my full-time station, we don't have a rescue apparatus. We have a fire truck. We don't have a rescue tool, so no Genesis first tools, anything like that. So we are the first line med unit for all car accidents. But what we don't carry our med units is we don't carry any type of like platform light at all. We got the box lights on the side of the squad. But if we get down a ravine or in the woods or anything like that, we don't have anything to really take with us. So experience has now taught me that, hey, before I go, I'm going to stop at the engine, grab one of the box platform lights that they have, the battery ones. I'm going to throw it in the side compartment of the squad at night. And that's saved me multiple times. But that's not something they teach you in orientation. No. That's something that experience teaches you. And now,
absolutely.
And now as a senior guy, like I get a new MT, it's like, hey, just so you know, running off our station here, we don't have this. We're going to take the ambulance. Make sure you grab this. It will save you. It has multiple times.
Yeah, because you don't want to be up creek without a paddle once you get there.
No, no.
I
It,
mean, those scene lights on the side of the squad, they're going to light up so much. Yeah, it's going to open broader area. I do believe they're all just floodlights,
mhm,
but you need more light than just what they're giving off.
yeah. Well, and you start to realize that that's great for like your immediate area.
Yes.
There is nothing in our job that necessarily takes place in our office, and I love it how when we in the EMT school, and maybe this is a way that we were kind of crippled in a way or kind of hindered by those who were senior to us. It made you think like everything was in this tiny little box, and not just the box of the ambulance, but like this tiny little box where I will always have a BVM at reach. I will always have a different nozzle at reach. I'll always have a different tool until you realize on your first structure fire that, hey, I'm on the second floor in the bedroom, and I need a New York hook or a pipe pull, and I call for it, and I'm waiting and wondering, did anyone hear me? Did anyone acknowledge? Did anyone? No, it just takes time not only to go for whoever to go find it or get it, but it also takes time for them to get it inside the house, get
Yeah.
to where you need it, and heaven forbid they bring the wrong size or they bring the wrong thing. You have to send it back out.
Yeah.
It's like you learn really quick that things don't take place in that small little box.
No, they don't. And I've learned that quickly when I first started too. Probably took about 2 years, but yeah, I learned very fast. So, and it happens.
So what would you say are some of the biggest lessons you've actually passed on to anyone? I mean, we kind of talked broad things, but you, Jeremiah, what are some of the things that you've tried to pass on?
Don't act like a know-it-all. That's the biggest one. The know-it-alls.
Mm,
Like I said, I've been doing this almost 14 years.
mm-hmm,
I've worked part-time. I've worked private EMS. I've worked departments, kind of almost all over the state. We
mm-hmm,
can say that. But when you get the people that are, the brand new people,
mm-hmm,
act like the know-it-all people that's I've been doing this a year or 2 years, like you said.
mm-hmm,
I don't need to do truck checks. I don't need another truck.
mm-hmm.
No, that doesn't fly. Yeah, you might know a truck, but you don't know these trucks.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be that person.
Yeah.
That puts a bad taste in my mouth. I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, those are ones that sometimes the biggest challenge because sometimes they know, maybe they don't even necessarily not know it all, but they know all the right answers to give you for the tabletop scenario.
Correct.
But it makes it really hard to argue or to dispute what the answers they give you because you're technically correct.
Yeah.
You're correct, but you know also too that the world doesn't work that way.
Exactly.
I I have to say that one of the things I try to tell younger guys is don't don't worry about being so hungry to do all the extra like technical teams or anything like
Yeah.
that. When you get in the fire service and when you start your first job, what's part-time, full-time, volunteer, take your first couple years, and I do mean couple years. So like in state of Ohio, a cycle of 3 years for your national or for your registry, 2 years for your state card. Take those years and learn the job
Yeah.
because there's tons of stuff out there and it's really cool. But what I see a lot of times is you learn about like technical rescue, ropes 1, ropes 2. Oh man, I want to go do that. Or you learn about trench rescue, or an EMT who then learns that, oh, wow, you could be a flight medic. Oh man, I want to do that. It's like learn your job here first, not because you need to stay there, but because the basics that you learn as a firefighter level 2 or level 1 in EMT transpose into everything else you do.
It's the foundation. It's part
Yes.
of the building blocks.
Yes. Uh, that's one thing because I had a guy actually I was working with yesterday. He's one of our part-timers at the full-time department I work for, and he was asking me. So I've been doing this for about 2-3 years. I don't want to go get my paramedic yet, but as a firefighter, what should I do? And I gave him the two that I think he should do is fire inspector and fire investigator for the purposes of that's what's going to teach you more about why we do our job, building construction and understanding how building safety
Mhm.
systems work, and then also for fire investigator side, your origin cause, knowing what starts fires, how fires spread, and how they react in different compartments.
Yeah.
But that's after, excuse me, that's after a couple years of him being on versus him coming to me a week in saying, "Oh man, okay, I got this whole EMT thing down. I want to do more."
Right. You know, I like the private ambulance company I work for, we get all these brand new EMTs that are 18, 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of them have been 17, you know, they're just waiting to get their card to turn 18, and they come in like, I know
Mm-hmm.
this. I want to go straight in med school. And the first thing I said, you need to learn the job first. I'm not trying to discourage you, but better you know this job, the better it's going to make you when you go to medic school or even advanced school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do a cycle for your card,
Mm-hmm.
then go. Because say you start now and you go to medic school and you decide you don't want to do this no more because you hate it.
Yeah.
You just wasted all that money and all that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, give it time, learn.
And for
It's
those of you listening, if it's state of Ohio, so the bare minimum that you need to average in most courses for paramedic is 12 hours of clinical time per week. And then you've also got about 12 to 14 hours of class time. I will tell you from experience that you will average closer to about 27 to 30 hours of clinical time
oh,
per week.
absolutely.
And then after your class time, you're going to spend about another 4 or 5 hours actually studying per week.
Hmm.
I mean, that's
Or even going right back to clinicals.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's what 980 some hours for your medic now.
Well, that's the bare minimum that
Yeah,
you have to make that you have to meet if you get all of your prereqs
yeah.
in that time. And I
That's
promise
just
you,
clinical
yeah,
hours.
it doesn't work that way.
No.
You know, kind of thinking on that though, do you think that sometimes senior guys can be the worst for encouraging those kind of mentalities,
Hmm.
like oh man, we're awesome and whatnot? Because I remember when I went through fire academy, and the big thing is that it's the best job in the world, and I love it. And oh man, I was a volunteer, and I didn't realize I could be paid to do this, and now I'm being paid. And it did fill my head with a lot of dreams of grandeur. That like, oh man, this is gonna be an awesome job, and I'm coming out of fire academy already some pretty hot stuff.
Right.
You think that we play anything into that, or you think we make it worse? Or
You know, even when I got out of the fire academy and got my fire card, I started looking for jobs. You
Mhm,
know, I found the job out here. It was to me. I'm like I was on top of the world.
mhm,
Like again, I was a kid. I was gun ho. I was going to every fire call. I didn't care.
yeah,
You know, but like I wish they would have like, listen, you don't have to come to all these.
mhm,
You know,
mm, mm,
I'm like, well, why not? You, you're not required to.
mhm.
We appreciate it, but you don't have to. You know, again, I felt like I was on top of the world because back then it was just part-time volunteer fire department.
Mhm.
Now we're not. That volunteer day is gone for
Yeah,
us.
that's that's the thing. You bring up something really good there, that you wish that someone senior to you would have told you you don't have to always be on.
Hmm.
Like that's that's absolutely
And,
huge.
and in my mind, like I didn't care.
Hmm.
I was young. I was going
Hmm.
everything I could go to.
Yep.
And I wish I would have had someone listen to sit back. You don't have to do this every time Tone's job,
Yeah.
you know? And I just wish somebody would have said that to me.
That kind of brings up something else that I've started telling younger members of fire service, is that take your time for you
Hmm.
too. Like going off of what you just said there, where it's that you don't have to be on all the time. You don't have to feel like you need to respond to every single call. When you're off, sometimes you got to turn the pager off.
Oh,
Sometimes you got to
absolutely.
turn the radio off, turn off the scanner, because you need that rest time.
Oh, absolutely. You just got to separate it.
Yeah. I mean, I realize that there are many people who would very strongly disagree with me,
Yes.
especially more rural departments. You're gonna say, well, but that's the only way we get people to respond to calls. But it's like, somebody's been doing this now 10 years. I would say, yeah, but what's your mental life like? What's mental health like?
Yeah.
That you come home, you've stepped inside for 5 minutes from whatever job you do, and
Now
now
you're
you've
rushing back
run.
out the door.
Yeah, I mean that wears on you. And I remember there was a point in time, and this is when I was in paramedic school specifically, but the on-call officer asked me one day, "Hey, you okay?" Because I was getting no sleep. I was going to class. I was working full time as EMT for a private ambulance company. And I was trying to make callbacks for the fire department as a volunteer. And I was going ragged. And he actually told me that, hey, we got already 4 of us on station tonight. This is volunteer day. So this wasn't like, I wasn't like scheduled to work per se. But he told me, hey, go ahead, go home. Go home, go to bed. You need to go get some rest.
Oh, absolutely.
And that was probably the best thing to happen. And now that I'm in that position where I've been doing this for a while, I've got no shame in telling somebody, hey, don't feel like you have to be Superman.
Oh,
Don't feel like
absolutely.
you have to be the one who's
You got to
always
take
doing
care
it.
of yourself.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Hmm.
Some people, that's all they think. They think they have to be
Hmm.
on call, respond to every single call.
Hmm.
But what's that doing to your mental health? What's
Yeah.
that doing to your family's
Hmm.
mental health as well? Because they play a huge part in it as well.
Yeah.
You know, you have to take time off. You have to separate. Like for me, like I have a problem with telling people no, I'm not going to cover a shift.
Hmm.
Then here I am working 16 days straight. It takes a toll on me. It's already starting to take a toll on me. Like starting on Friday, I'm back to 9 days again.
Yeah.
It's like, and it does take a toll on me. Like I feel the effects.
Hmm.
When I was younger, nope, didn't care, didn't feel it. Now that I've been doing this for almost 15 years, I see it and I feel it.
Well, to be fair too, when we were also younger, we had someone senior over us who would in some way shame you into not coming to. So just the exact
Yeah,
opposite of what I just said there, that hey, go home, take the night and recuperate. There is always at least one other person who was never happy with how many times you came back, was never satisfied with how many callbacks you had, or what,
yeah,
they were always telling you, it was like, well, back in my day, we all, like, when the fire tones drop, we have 40 people here. Now we barely get 8. And
yep.
it's hard to balance that out.
It,
And
it, it is. I remember years and years ago, we were all out hanging out. We're at a bachelor party,
mm-hmm,
got a structure fire. No one showed up
mm-hmm,
because people that respond to those calls are gone.
yeah,
And we actually got yelled at for it.
mm-hmm,
Like why?
yeah,
Like that's not okay. And coming from a chief too.
yeah.
Like no, like we have to separate it. We have to have our time away. Like yelling at us for because we were out having fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the way to go upon it.
No, well, and it's one of those things that when you're young, you just think like, oh man, yeah, I guess maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I don't deserve to be here. You get a few years on you, and you realize that no, that's just someone upset for whatever purpose reason. Either they're not getting a response they used to, or they feel like their era is ending. But I mean, on one side, yeah, you have to take on the responsibility, but on the other side, you also have to take on the responsibility to say, we don't,
Yep.
we need to rely on other sources.
Yeah.
Like,
But that was also back when we were still just a baby part time and
mhm,
still mainly volunteer.
yeah,
Because remember it was hours were 8 to 4, and that was it.
hmm,
And then here we are. Now we're full time, part time, and and
everything in
we've pretty
between.
much phased out the whole volunteer portion of it.
Hmm.
You know, so it's like I've been there from the true volunteer
Hmm.
to where we are now. I've seen the growing pains.
Hmm.
I've seen the phases we've been through.
That really puts you in a kind of a really interesting spot, because for those guys, I mean, if you've been around long enough to not only be a part of the volunteer department, but also be a part of that department that has grown from volunteer into a part-time, full-time entity. I mean, that carries a lot too, and changes
It
how how
does.
you
Yeah.
how you react to things too. Um, Yeah, I guess the biggest thing is like, how did you feel that you had to actually take on that role? Because at one point, I mean, I remember some of the volunteers we have. We still have one or two who hang on for dear life.
Yeah.
But for you, like, how did that change from your perspective? Because you were one of the volunteers,
Yes.
and then you became a part time staff member. Like, what? How did you feel that things changed?
I felt like I was still on top of the world because here I'm working part time here now.
Mm-hmm,
Like I was signing up almost every single day that I could. I was able to work. Like I was working there as much as I could. I didn't care,
mm-hmm,
you know. But also going from the volunteer sort of phase to the part time phase, it was weird
mm-hmm,
because now I'm at there at the station that's responding directly to calls instead of
mm-hmm,
coming from home or wherever I might be to
mm-hmm.
the station and then getting on a truck. It was different for me
Yeah.
because I wasn't used to that. Because the first full year I was
Mm-hmm,
a straight volunteer.
mm-hmm.
You know, it, it took some time to get used to, and then doing stuff we have to do in the mornings. Never had to do that until I got all my certifications.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is new. This is different. And now I'm back in another learning phase again.
Mm-hmm.
That took me. I mean, I caught on quick, but it took me a while to
Yeah.
learn everything.
It's a culture shock in a
Yeah,
way. You know, you bring up an interesting thing because I remember when I first started, and I mean, we still do to a certain extent, but overstaffing the station for like bad weather. You
yeah.
know,
Yep.
Ohio
Oh
snowstorm
man, we
comes
did that
through.
all the time.
It's like, and it was the, hey man, we're all bachelors, we're all young and dumb. We're gonna stay up all night and we're gonna play Xbox because that's how it was, and that's not the culture anymore. Partially because
No.
we're all now in our mid 30s, and
Yeah.
it's like we want to go to bed, but also at the same
Yep.
time too, they like you realize that 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 mentality of like this is just a hobby
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
fell off.
I remember after trainings on
Mhm.
our training nights, we'd all stay back and play Call of Duty.
Oh yeah,
That went that probably lasted about 6 years.
yeah.
And it's like, what happened?
Back when the important thing was, hey, we got to make sure one of the guys brings the Xbox or brings the
Oh, yep,
PlayStation.
yep.
And if they ever took it, I remember one night the guy who owned it took it because he was having a powwow or whatever at his house, and like, what happened?
Yeah, people were texting and, hey, where's the Xbox? Hey, did you text your Xbox? Like, what the heck?
Hmm.
That was the staple of end of Tuesday night trainings.
Yeah,
Call of Duty. We
and
piled
all
up in that room and we'd pass the controllers around,
yeah,
And like you said, Xbox, PlayStation goes missing. Who took it?
yeah.
That's the first thing. Where's the Xbox? Where's the PlayStation?
Hmm. Now looking at this, I mean, because those days they weren't that long ago,
No.
but now looking, it's like I can walk by and like I don't feel like spending that time tonight. I'd rather go and work on trying to develop a training for us to do on our
Mhm.
training nights, or I'd
Yeah.
rather when the weather's nice, hey, let's go store some ladders, let's go do some pump pops or
Yeah.
something.
And that you bring up a really good point right there. Throw on some ladders, do some training. I remember them sending out pages. Hey, we're gonna cook some food or order some food. We're also gonna do some training.
Hmm.
It's almost like it's obsolete now. Like people are
Yeah,
so complacent with things.
yeah, but
You know.
this almost hits on our topic here a little bit too on the nose, because those who did that, they never passed it on to us. We never like we and I guess to say that we didn't know how it worked is a little disingenuous, because we know how it works. We didn't know all the work that went into that, from sending out WENS pages or active 911
Yeah.
pages or whatever, and organizing it. And then you have to come up with at least somewhat of a skeleton of a lesson plan and
Yeah.
stuff. None of that was passed on.
No.
And so, yeah, you're right. We gotta say it's become obsolete, and it seems like it's outdated, and we don't do it anymore. Well, no one also passed it on to us, and
No.
that's one of the most terrifying things now is that we have to figure out how to do that with very little tutelage, very little.
Yeah. And and even if we do send those out,
Mm-hmm,
it's either you get one person, you get 0 people,
mm-hmm,
or you get 5 or 6.
mm-hmm.
You just never know. And there's just some people who are like, nah, why would I want to do that? Why not? Not only are you going to better yourself, but you're also going to show to the younger ones, like, listen, yeah, I've been doing this a while, but just because I have all this experience doesn't mean I know it all.
Yeah, yeah. I think you bring up something really important with that because one of the allures of becoming senior, getting promoted and whatnot is that one day I won't have to be the one to do all the stupid trainings.
Yeah.
One day I'm not going to be the one throwing the ladder 8 times. I'm not going to be the one pulling hose line. I'm not going to be pulling crossways or rolling hose. I'm going to be the one sitting on the sidelines, arms crossed. And first of all, that day never came. But second of all, you realize that no, being senior, you actually it's almost more expected that you know the job better,
Yeah.
and that you have to figure out like how to actually be a part of trainings, not just dictating them.
Absolutely. Like when I first started, I had one mentor,
Mm-hmm,
one, and that was an assistant chief. And I'm thinking like, okay, barely saw him. I was
mm-hmm,
like, what about all these other officers we have here?
yeah,
You know, but they weren't ever given that responsibility. Hey, here's a new person.
mm-hmm,
Let's teach them. Let's get them up to speed. You know, again, like my first structure fire. All right, here you go.
yeah.
Here's a hose line.
But
And the first thing when I accidentally got the chief wet, I got yelled at. Like,
but
you
but
know,
then you start thinking, and this is the way my brain works at least. So you say it's like, so you had the assistant chief who mentored you, but then the rest of the officers didn't or weren't there as nearly as much. It's like I asked myself, what kind of mentoring did they have?
exactly.
And I mean, so when they were young bucks, who were their senior firefighters, EMT, paramedics who taught them? Did they teach them? How much did they teach them? And I guess that's kind of where, especially like starting this podcast, but also like moving forward, is I want to break that cycle of
Absolutely.
just letting people be fed to the wolves. And if you were just arbitrarily lucky to not get yourself killed, hurt, or otherwise, then you get to stay.
Yeah.
It's like that because that there goes back lineages,
Yeah.
ages of firefighters.
Oh, absolutely. And the new people coming in, I don't want them to have to experience the sink or swim situation
Mm-hmm,
that I experienced.
mm-hmm,
I want them to have the best possible training or whatever it may be. You know, guide.
mm-hmm,
Just guiding them. Like I tell them, listen, you can call me or text me
mm-hmm.
whenever you want if you have a question, but if it's at night, you're better off just call me because I ain't gonna answer a text if I'm asleep.
Yeah.
Like I don't care. I didn't get that. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
this is this 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 this. This is how you do this and that. It was just explained.
Yeah.
It was never all right. Let's run through this.
Yeah.
And I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
So I will go. I will start at the most basic stuff ever.
Yep.
I don't care. If
Mm.
it makes you feel dumb, makes you feel dumb. I want to put a great foundation down, and then build up from there.
You know, it's interesting because it's you brought up like I don't want other people to go through this thing, and it's like it's like I can hear somebody screaming at us. And I'm sure that wherever we post this now, we're gonna see comments like, "Oh well, you guys just don't know." Well, we have to. It's like no, just because we went through tough, turbulent times, just because we've gone through the growing pains for our part-time department of watching it go from volunteer to part-time to kind of full-time back to part-time to
Mhm.
back to kind of full-time to really full-time back to doesn't mean that we should wish that or that we should try to orchestrate that on younger members.
Yeah.
you know it makes me laugh that just because whenever you were whenever you were new at the fire station, you were the one who always made coffee and you did all the house chores, and you're the only one out there washing the trucks because hey, you're the new guy. That's your job. Just because that's how it used to be doesn't A, make him right, but B, also doesn't mean that we need to continue treating people like that, especially
Agreed.
when most people who went through that would say, "Yeah, I hated it. I hated my first year. I hated my Probie year because I was treated
Yeah,
there."
wash, wax, all the trucks,
Yeah,
trash, sweep, mop. You were Cinderella
yeah.
for them.
Meanwhile, everyone else racked out the recliners and
Yep.
whatnot, not lifting a finger. If they do, it's to, oh, hey, you missed a spot. Go do
Oh,
it again.
hmm
It's like as I get older, I realize like just because that's how we were treated doesn't mean
exactly.
we have to do
Yeah.
that ourselves.
And like I tell a lot of new guys, like, and because they'll ask about that. I'm like,
Hmm.
that's not how we do that
Hmm.
here. And if that does happen here, you need to say something to somebody
Yeah.
because that's not okay.
No.
We're not back in the 1950s or 60s where that's where it was an everyday thing.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, one thing that one of our captains said a couple of years ago, in regards to us doing a major project around the station, was that hey, we shouldn't have done it back in the 80s when we did this major project. We shouldn't have done it now. We definitely or we shouldn't have done it then. We definitely shouldn't do it now. But just because we did it then does not set the precedence to that.
Right.
Although that being said, when it comes to coffee and morning coffee, I want to be the one to make that. I don't care.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want no Probie. I don't want no young guy, young gal. I don't want them touching my coffee pot because I've had some pretty nasty coffee from it. Some of those.
Yeah. Either they put too much or not enough.
That's like the one line I will draw. That's that you do not touch my coffee pot.
We will teach you how to make that. It is a science.
Yes, but as far as everything else, I mean, it's especially with where we are now, most fire departments are understaffed.
Oh,
You should be
absolutely.
running with engine crews that are at least four, maybe five. If you're really fortunate, you're running with some who are running with two.
Yeah.
It's like you got ladder companies that used to be staffed with six. They're running skeleton as three because
Oh,
that's what it.
absolutely.
In that atmosphere, you can't afford to pull the senior card every single time and say, "Hey, I've been doing this. Go do that. I'm gonna go." There's too much to do.
Oh, absolutely.
One of our senior guys, the full time department I work for, he's got about 10 years on me, almost 15 years on me. He was talking about how he hates it whenever one person on this shift day gets pulled or tasked out to do something menial because they, especially at our home station, there's four trucks to go through daily checks,
Hmm.
not to mention all the house chores and training, and it's so much. It's unreasonable for one person or two people to try to do that by themselves. It takes everyone coming together to
Oh,
do
yeah.
that. It's
It comes down to teamwork.
yeah.
That's what it is.
Hmm.
And like, you made a good point. With all that has to be done, it that's gonna take that one person all day
Yeah.
to do all that.
Yeah. Well, as a senior firefighter, I ask myself, what are they learning there doing that except of resentment
Yeah.
and frustration and a chip on their shoulder? Which,
Mhm.
hey, those could be some good qualities in a very specific circumstance. But as a general firefighter who's I'm going to be working with for prospectively the next 15 years, I don't want them pissed off by the end of their first year and hating everybody and thinking everyone's against them,
Right.
and then spending the next 8 years, 10 years bitter and frustrated. And anytime I try to work with them, they got a chip on their shoulder. That doesn't help me. It doesn't help
No,
anybody.
no, it doesn't. You know, and I've seen that,
Mm,
and 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 people sometimes don't last long.
mm-hmm.
They'll That happens to them. Then next thing you know, they're gone.
Yeah.
6 months to a year, maybe 2 years, they're
Mm-hmm.
gone. You never see them again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what? Hey, what happened? Why'd you leave?
Yeah.
And then you find out, well, I got tired of being the only person doing this, the only
Yeah.
person doing that, taking
Yeah.
all day, no help. Everybody sitting down, doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and it's rough because you can see it, and unfortunately, the ones who usually do it are the ones who have been around for the longest, that
Mm-hmm.
they're the worst about it. But I mean, you're absolutely right, and that's I was reading kind of related to this, kind of related to my own personal interest, but the biggest group right now of the fire service is the 30 to 35, 40 range
Mm-hmm.
right there. They it is single digits in recruitment to young kids that are like 18 to 21 years old. Single digits. This is per 2020. So this isn't even counting the last 2 years now. Like this is like, and I mean, I don't, not that I don't care about the ones beyond us, but as you get to that point, you're retiring and whatnot. I mean, that's going to kind of skew numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But what's fascinating to me is that the ones who would be like the Gen Z group, they're not wanting to stay in the fire service. They're not wanting to get into the fire service.
No.
They don't want to deal with egos. They don't want to deal with nonsense. They don't want to deal with playing the games that sometimes senior firefighters try to play. Of like, oh hey, I'm gonna do this thing, or we're gonna make you go wash and wax all trucks. Oh wait, no, it's supposed to be ambulances you wash and wax, and we're gonna make you play these games to do that. It's like, and I see that as like, I wonder, it's like, how long, like, what's the gap gonna be like before the next senior firefighters take
Yeah.
over? Because
And it's scary to think about too.
yeah, well, especially because it's like, who we pass on our knowledge to? The next, I mean, next big group, at least where we are part time. I mean, the gap between us and that next group who started is about 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
8, 9 years. I mean, they're the ones who are just coming out of the academy last year. They're the ones who just getting their EMT card this year.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to be by the time that we retire, they're going to be in the same boat as we are, wondering where'd all the old guys go.
Oh, absolutely. Like, and, and the whole point of, oh, this truck today, this truck today. Oh, actually, it's this ambulance in this truck. It's almost like on a fine line of the hazing situations,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know, and with the way it is today, you can't do that.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. It's a big no, no. Like for me, like I'm like, this is what we're gonna do today,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm gonna help you. You're not
Yeah.
gonna do it by yourself.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, because some sometimes I hear people ask like, well, is it really hazing? I mean, if we're, it's like, yeah, I mean, if you're trying to make them out to be a fool and look like an idiot, absolutely
Yeah.
hazing. Like and I don't understand that mentality of say, hey, I've been doing this for 10 years. It's now my turn to make you look like an idiot and show you how stupid you are. I promise you, you go on your first fire, your first squad call, or whatever, you'll see plenty how stupid people can
Oh,
be.
yeah.
And
I
I'm
was
not
there
saying
at one
that to
point.
be derogatory. I'm just saying that's just how it is. We've
Yeah.
all been there where it's like,
Absolutely.
oh, hey, oh, that's a fire hose? Oh, like, it doesn't, you don't have to do that. It will find them. But when you're in that position of a senior leadership and you're intentionally doing it, I mean, you're not only hurting morale, but you're making everyone out to look like an ass,
Yeah,
honestly.
absolutely. And then they put this picture in their head that, oh, this is what's gonna happen. And then when it's their turn to be that senior person, they're gonna do it to the next group
Mm-hmm.
of younger people. I'm like,
Yeah.
and it's just so on and so forth.
Yeah. That kind of brings up kind of, maybe it's a good landing point. We'll see here, but the complaining that senior guys do, we see a lot, and contrary to what anyone might think, your lower echelons, they see a lot more than what you
Oh yeah.
realize. They are much more perceptive than what you realize. One thing that I've realized as a senior firefighter, I have to be very careful about is how much and to whom I complain and state my opinions about,
Yeah.
and B, the manner in which I do so.
Yep.
So, for example, like, you get somebody who is just fresh out of the fire academy. This is their first week on the job. They're not the appropriate person to complain to about administrative stuff, or about how we don't get paid enough, or we don't get holidays or anything like that. That's not the person to do that. but then also too, and this can go for any age group that you're talking to, but how you word it and word your complaint makes a difference too,
It
because
does.
you can have some very reasonable gripes, concerns, and so on and so forth. But if you're always voicing them as like how incompetent everyone is, and how there's no way that anyone could ever work like this, and this is gonna get everyone else in trouble and whatnot, that doesn't help anyone, because that
No.
starts to plant ideas. That kind of goes along the way of the gossip tree, where you start planting these ideas in people's heads, and that starts to grow very
Yeah,
quickly.
it's like you said, it's planting ideas, just like planting a seed.
Hmm.
You plant that seed, they're gonna go from that,
Yeah.
and you don't want that.
No. Well, especially whenever, I mean, how many things when you were new did it not make sense why you would do certain things?
Oh, a lot.
Especially in the fire academy, you learned the quote unquote textbook way of doing things, and now you're being told, no, we're gonna do it this way, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. And then you hear some senior guy complain, it's like, oh well, Captain so and so, oh they're so stupid anyways, or they didn't actually deserve their promotion and they got it. Now, what's that younger person think, especially whenever Captain so and so tells them to go do something?
Yeah, and he's gonna think, oh, he didn't deserve that. He don't know what
Yep.
he's talking about.
Yep.
It's spreads like wildfire.
Yes. Yes. Now it's one thing that it's like, as we age, we get a lot more opinions. And I used to think like, oh man, I'm gonna reach a point where I could be the curmudgeony old guy who just
Hmm.
speaks their mind and everyone listens. Like, oh okay. And I realized, like, first of all, I don't want to be that, but then second of all, too, it's like that's really hurtful.
Yeah,
That doesn't help anybody. And that's caused a lot more pain than anything else.
I there's a moment I will never forget because it almost made me leave the fire service.
Mm-hmm.
It was on a mutual aid call.
Mm-hmm.
I had three in my truck. I was the only one allowed to drive that truck too.
Yeah.
And then we were still in that sort of volunteer part-time phase too.
Mm-hmm.
He calls the station and says, "I'll I'll be there in 5 minutes." Like, sir, I'm not waiting 5 more minutes. I have three on my truck. I'm going.
Yeah.
He takes it upon himself and another member to take another tanker out to that fire scene to verbally chew me out.
Mm.
And I literally that put such a bad taste in my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
It made me almost want to quit because I got treated so poorly because I was not waiting 5 minutes when I had a truck full of people.
Yeah.
And the fact that you brought another truck to the scene without asking if they needed
Mm-hmm.
another truck, and then no, nothing happens, but
Mm-hmm.
I get yelled at
Mm-hmm.
and I literally almost left.
Yeah. No, I mean that's the I have a very similar situation, but before that, I mean it's just it really says to you, it's like, is this what it's gonna be like
Hmm.
for me? Like, and at that point, you're not wondering like, am I ever gonna make it to my 5 year, 10 year mark? You're thinking like, boy, am I even gonna want to stay here? Like, if this is
Yeah,
how I'm gonna be, if I'm not gonna learn how to do things, I'm just gonna be told I'm an idiot.
yeah,
That.
pretty much. And that's what he told me. He pretty much called me an idiot that
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen. And this
Mm-hmm.
is coming from an officer,
Yeah.
a lieutenant. I'm
Yeah.
like, you you shouldn't be doing something like
Mm-hmm.
this. I got two new people here with me.
Mm-hmm.
What does this say about you?
Mm-hmm.
And what are you trying to say about me?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not okay.
Yeah.
It's then it puts in their mind like, oh, he's an asshole,
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't listen. He's insubordinate. I'm like, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it really it really helps, at least it should, in my opinion. It helps frame how you would react, or hopefully react
Mhm.
later. And unfortunately, a lot of people do take the like, oh hey, I was yelled at by the captain. I could become a captain lieutenant. I'm gonna be the one to yell at somebody now because that's how it works. And we just keep the endless cycle going. But I mean, it's at least good that for you that you're able to say, okay, hey, I know that wasn't wrong. It's not to say that you won't do it out of just whatever case, but that you're going to actively strive to not be that person,
Oh,
to not
absolutely.
be that.
And I used to look up to him too,
Mm-hmm.
But when that happened, nope,
Y-
it was done.
I thought we were gonna have a really good landing point a second ago, but you just brought up something. You just brought up something profound there, my friend. That yeah, you used to look up to him. Like when we do fail to live up to actual good qualities as senior firefighters, what does that do? Not just on a personal level, but as an organization level. Like, what does that do to morale? What does that do to everything?
Some people are gonna just say, "Oh, it is what it is."
Mm-hmm.
But you got these younger guys. It could either you can go 50-50, or they can be like, "Oh, I'm never gonna be like that," or it's not gonna affect them.
Yeah.
You know, but hopefully it's not gonna affect them,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll never be that way.
Yeah.
I'd rather be both ways
Mm-hmm.
instead of 50-50, because when that happened, that again, like I said, I looked up to him. I thought
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he did teach me a lot of stuff, but after that day, done.
Yeah.
Never again. I didn't trust him. I listened to him,
Mm-hmm.
yes, but I would never trust him, and I still had respect for him, but to an extent.
It's amazing how fast that's lost too.
Yeah,
Like,
and like that
yeah,
within 5 minutes.
and that's crazy to think about because like, and it might not even been anything really big or anything groundbreaking. But in that moment where you lose your temper as a senior firefighter, in that moment where you like, ah, man, I'm gonna make this person rue the day that they did something so foolish,
Mm-hmm.
stupid, or whatever, like you can immediately not only change the trajectory of how they see you and the organization, but how they see themselves and
Mm-hmm.
what kind of person they're gonna be, like
Yeah.
overnight, like in an instant. And it could be something stupid, like not mopping the floors at a certain time. Like I've seen that happen where it's like, oh hey, the house chores weren't done. I promise you, house chores are not a reason to get bent out of shape.
Yeah.
Even if it's a recurrent thing, that's not a reason to get bent out of shape. But I have seen people who have lost their minds over house chores, and what gets out of it is that the house chores still don't get done, but everyone looks at them like, oh, they're the overreactor. They're the one who's going to be. And I've been that person too.
No,
So
I mean, me too. Absolutely.
so
I can't deny it because I have, and I'm sure it'll happen again.
yeah.
But I'll take a whole different route about it.
Mm-hmm.
It won't be like I was when I was younger. Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Why wasn't this done? Like, hey, before we go to bed, we got to make sure we get this done.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the whole thing is that it's we're at a point now where we have to choose
Mm-hmm.
to be different. We can't just sit here and rewind history over and over and over again. We have to say that doesn't work. Let's try something different.
Yep.
And be willing to say when things don't work because our egos, I think, are like the biggest thing that stops us more
Oh,
than anything else.
it absolutely is. Like I know I had an ego when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. 18, 19 years old. You're absolutely right. I got an ego. Here I am. Oh, I am a firefighter. I do all this and
Mm-hmm.
that, this and that. Yeah, I had a huge ego. And as I got older, it got lower, lower,
Mm-hmm.
lower. And I'm glad I don't have that ego. Because honestly, if I still had it, nobody would like me.
No, I mean, we already think that we're right enough as it is. I know I think I'm right enough as it is. I don't need any more pushing that one up. I won't be able to get out the station through the bay doors.
Yeah.
So this has been good. This
Oh,
has been good.
absolutely.
You know, there's so many things we could talk about. I mean, what's funny, and I was thinking this as we were going, even the topic on senior firefightership. I mean, we touched so many other things too, but
Mm-hmm.
it all kind of interconnects.
It wasn't probably about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
I came in for my shift, and the guys were coming off. He made a comment. He's like, years ago when I was still new and young, and we'd sit around, listen to the senior guys talk,
Mm-hmm.
and here I am, that senior guy now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, where did this time go? I'm
Yeah.
like thinking about it because he's like, and you're that senior guy here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just blew my mind. I'm
Yeah.
like, holy cow, I am. Like, since when?
Yeah,
Like we said earlier when we first started, like it happened like overnight.
yeah. No, I mean it's crazy because now I'm looking back. It's kind of like a final thing. I'm looking back thinking, I wish I had listened just a little bit more.
Same.
Like when somebody was telling stories or telling their war stories,
Mhm.
like listen up a little bit.
Yeah.
Captain's talking about the fire from 1990 whatever, or they're talking about a major accident they had on the highway. I wish I had listened just a little bit more and actually instead of waiting to tell like, oh, my really cool thing in my first couple years that really kind of pales in
Yeah.
comparison and it's not the point. I really wish I had listened and you know,
Yeah.
but you got anything else you wanna put out there or anything?
No, that's. I think we've hit some good topics for the night.
I think so too. So if you're still listening here, we're gonna be posting Spotify, YouTube for starts. Um, please leave a comment. Tell us some of your experiences
Yeah.
as a senior firefighter.
Or leave us some topics
Yeah,
to discuss too.
yeah,
We're always open to it.
yeah. Because I mean, we got a few topics, but I mean, if we post every 2 weeks, we'll run out of topics real
Oh,
quick.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
but well, once again, I've been Tim. It's been
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah, and you have been listening to Conflict of Leader Coffee Table Edition. We will be back in a couple weeks with our next episode. I guess that's really all we got.
Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.